meeting probably for work, I think.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I call to order the October meeting of the University of Minnesota Regents. Thank you to everyone joining us in the boardroom and via live stream today. I'd also note that we have Regents Bo Tarabi and Regent Penny Wheeler who are attending via Zoom. Good morning to you as well. First, we will approve the September minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Next, we will hear the report of President Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair Mayeron. It's been an exciting fall semester so far, and I'm pleased to share some highlights from across the University of Minnesota system as part of my October President's Report. Ever since I arrived here in the Twin Cities, you've heard me talk at great lengths about how extraordinary this place is. And I'm pleased to report that many others across the country also recognize the university's tremendous value and impact. U.S. News and World Report recently released its 2025 Best Colleges rankings, and I'm so excited to share that U of M has maintained its position as one of the nation's leading public research universities. Here's a snapshot of some of the rankings that appeared there. Our Crookston campus ranks number 3 among top public schools, regional colleges in the Midwest. Our Morris campus ranks number 7 among top public schools, national liberal arts colleges. Our Duluth campus ranks number 20 among regional universities in the Midwest, and our Twin Cities campus ranks number 23 among top public national universities. These rankings are a direct reflection of our talented students, faculty, and staff whose leadership, creativity, and commitment to serving the public good are simply unmatched. Our national reputation is also a direct reflection of our healthcare infrastructure. And so I would also like to provide some updates about the letter of intent for U of M to acquire the University Medical Center facilities. The University, M Physicians, and Fairview recently agreed to extend the deadline for completing the analysis, discussions, and decisions necessary to advance our letter of intent and resulting definitive agreements. University leadership had planned for this potential when they signed the letter of intent earlier this year, and I'm working closely with our advisory team to complete the current stages of discussions. The work is as important as it is complex. We all believe it is better for our faculty, clinicians, researchers, learners, employees, and patients to get this work done right than rather for us to get it done quickly by a deadline that is somewhat arbitrary. I am confident in the progress we are making toward governing the university-led academic health system that we all envision, governing our priorities. As it has been true throughout these discussions, nothing changes for our patients, our care teams, our employees at any of our facilities in the current state. We remain focused on providing the high-quality, innovative care Minnesotans expect and deserve, and on strengthening our joint clinical enterprise. I need more coffee perhaps this morning. Beyond healthcare, we currently continue to spur transformational change through our booming research enterprise. As one of the nation's leading public research universities, we have a unique responsibility to ensure that our innovations and discoveries are translated in ways that positively benefit people in the communities in which they live. Our students, faculty, and staff have embraced this idea of research commercialization, and it's certainly reflected in our latest metrics as well. We've launched 25 startup companies based on U of M research last year. Our latest numbers are now out, 22 of which are located right here in Minnesota, spurring the economy. To put this in perspective, over the last 5 years, only a very small handful of universities nationwide have created more than 20 startups per year out of their university research. If you go back to 2006, when our Venture Center was founded, U of M had launched more than 260 startup companies since then. Our researchers have cultivated an ecosystem for innovation, and as a result, we continue to create new products and solutions that transform, improve, and enhance the world around us. It's important to note, though, that our research enterprise extends far beyond science, medicine, and engineering. We have a tremendous breadth and depth of scholarship in arts, creative practice that many of our peers across the country simply cannot match. I say this with conviction after joining my colleagues from the College of Liberal Arts last week on a tour of their research labs, art galleries, historical archives, and collections. I had a wonderful opportunity, which many thanks for the leaders and the students and staff that were available to show me around. I visited the Center for Applied and Translational Sensory Science in the College of Liberal Arts. I got to see the Jean Nicholas Tretter collection in gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender studies. And the caverns were simply exciting. If you have not yet been in the caverns downstairs, what a tremendous collection that has supported so much good work and is a resource for the whole country. I toured our ancient and modern genetics labs. Our work across the liberal arts is truly impressive, from psychology and philosophy to theater, design, and technology. I look forward to working with our deans, Vice President Priya, and other members of our research community so we can identify new ways to promote increased collaboration across our diverse disciplines, including our scholarship. As we continue to move forward as a university system, I am very excited to extend an official warm welcome to Greg Goldman, who will serve as our new Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations. The Board of Regents approved Greg's appointment yesterday, and his official start date is November 11th. Yes. Greg is a seasoned finance and operations leader who brings more than 30 years of experience in higher education to the Twin Cities, in public land grants in complex university systems. At UCLA, he served as Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer. He has also led finance and operations efforts at UC Irvine, USC, and Arizona. It'll be very interesting football games, I'm sure, here. As Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, Greg will be responsible for the university's $4.5 billion annual operating budget. He'll oversee a staff of more than 2,700 employees, and he will manage our fiscal approach across the 5 campuses, other sites, including the University Medical Center, ensuring overall fiscal operational excellence. I look forward to working with Greg so that together we can guide the university towards a bright future while supporting our students, faculty, and staff so they can achieve our goals and their goals. As a special thank you to Julie Tomlinson for her outstanding service as Interim Senior Vice President for Finance and Operations. Thank you so much, Julie. Julie has been a tremendous colleague throughout the early months of my presidency, and I am truly grateful for her strong support, her steady leadership, and her kind friendship during this time. I would also like to thank Provost Croson, Ken Horstman, and the entire VP Horstman and the entire search committee for their dedicated time and thoughtful service throughout this important national search process. Before I conclude my president's report, with the presidential election only a few weeks away, I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate the Twin Cities campus for winning the Minnesota Democracy Cup. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Twin Cities campus had the highest voter turnout amongst 4-year public institutions statewide in 2022. And while we're on this topic, voter registration deadlines for the November 5th general election are right around the corner. The deadline to register on paper is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th. The deadline to register online is 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th. Otherwise, you can register on Election Day at your polling place. I know our students care deeply and are working on ways that they can make themselves available as part of our larger democratic process. We will have an early voting site available here on the Twin Cities campus on Tuesday, October 22nd at the Wiseman Art Museum, and you can find more details on all of this on our MVote website. Lastly, I would like to thank everyone who participated in the presidential inauguration ceremony on September 18th. A really special shout out to Ann Wilczek and her colleagues from the foundation for all of their time and effort that went into organizing every last detail. Inauguration once again reminded me of how honored I am to serve as the 18th president of the University of Minnesota system. We are going to accomplish many great things together. Thank you for your time and attention this morning, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Turning to my report, I would like to commend President Cunningham on completing her first 100 days in office. We were honored to celebrate her leadership as she was formally inaugurated as the university's 18th president on September 18th. If you have not already seen it, a highlight video and photos from the day's celebration are available on the president's website. She and her team have shown great promise for elevating the university system and advancing our mission. My board colleagues and I are optimistic as we look towards the future. The board will also launch a series of listening activities across the system later this month, where a small group of regents will visit each campus to meet students, faculty, staff, and community members where they are. We will visit the Morris Campus Student Center on Tuesday, October 29, and the Crookston Campus Sargent Center on Wednesday, October 30. We would love if you would stop by our table if we are coming to your location. I won't say if, when we come to your location. On November 12th, we will visit the Duluth campuses, Kirby Student Center, and on December 4, we will visit the Twin Cities campus with a stop at St. Paul Campus Student Center. As spring plans come together, we will visit the Rochester campus and return to the Twin Cities campus with visits to both the East and West Bank. Please look to your local campus updates for more details. If you are unable to attend the in-person times, the board's virtual forum is a great opportunity to share your input with the board. Our individual region emails are also available on the board's website, and correspondence sent to uregents@umn.edu is regularly shared with all of the regions. I can assure you that my colleagues and I read the submissions and weigh the input as we conduct our work. Communication with our constituencies, both going in both directions, is critical to our operation and success. That concludes my comments, and at this time we will continue with our agenda. Item 4 is to receive and file reports. Please note the following items that are reported in the docket materials for this meeting: the virtual forum comments, the annual report on legal matters, and the summary of expenditures for the Office of the President, East Cliff, and the Office of the Board of Regents. Next, we will consider the revised consent report. The revised consent report includes gifts, the adoption of the East Cliff Advisory Board bylaws, and nominations to the University of Minnesota Foundation Board of Trustees. The consent report also includes the election of Greg Goldman as treasurer of the Board of Regents for the remainder of the term ending June 30, 2025. I am placing Greg Goldman's name in nomination. Before we advance to the rest of the consent report, are there any further nominations for treasurer? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed. Before I invite a motion to approve the revised consent report, you are welcome to ask questions, make comments, or ask for any item to be separated out from the report to be voted on separately. Are there any questions, comments, or requests to separate out an item?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Regent Gully.
Thank you, Chair. Can you talk to, I understand that this has been practice in the past to have the treasurer be a leader or person on staff. Can you talk to the history of that and why the treasurer is not a member of the board, and also what privileges come with them being treasurer?
I'm going to call a friend. Can you help us out, Executive Director Steves?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Regent Gully, I would have to, we have the history put together. I don't have it right in front of me, but we have in modern times had, the board has designated the CFO essentially as the treasurer. And the reason behind that has been there are not, I guess, privileges that go with the position. There are responsibilities that go with the position, and those include things like signing bond issuances and handling some of the CFO type affairs that that this corporation, this University of Minnesota corporation, has to work through and deal with. And so it's simply an added responsibility, but as a corporation, having that office designated has been administratively efficient to have it, coincide with the CFO role. And like I said, I think that's been the case for decades. We've got a complete history that we've put together. This question came up maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and we've put together a complete history going back to the beginning of the board. But really, it's been in modern times, it's always been the CFO.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve this consent report? Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, and as there are no further questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Our next item is addresses the DEI system-wide initiatives for 2024 and 2025. And at this time, we will receive an overview from the Office of Equity and Diversity system-wide initiatives and programs for this time period. With us today are Vice President Mercedes Ramirez Fernandez, Associate Vice President Tina Marisam, Associate Vice President Keisha Varma, and as they come to the table, Vice President Ramirez Fernandez, would you like to start as soon as you're ready?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, and President Cunningham, and members of the board. I am extremely grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about some of the examples of our work on behalf of fulfilling the mission of the University of Minnesota. My colleagues, AVP Keisha Varma and AVP Tina Marison, join me this morning as they will provide updates on some of our institutional priorities. But to begin, I would like to provide a bit of context about the Office for Equity and Diversity, since understanding our role and mission is crucial as it sets a foundation for how we collaborate with various entities within the university. At the core of our work, within our office, we have 3 foundational priorities that guide all of our initiatives and partnerships across the University of Minnesota system. First, we are committed to increasing representational diversity across all levels of the institutions. This means not only focusing on recruitment, but also on creating pathways for students, faculty, and staff from underrepresented communities to thrive and grow within the university. AVP Varma will share a bit more about our pathway programs for undergrad students and for faculty. Second, we are dedicated to improving campus climate. This is a continuous improvement for all of us. We understand that representation alone is not enough, and that we must foster an environment where all individuals feel valued and supported. This includes our efforts in shaping policies and practices and cultural changes that lead to a more inclusive and welcoming campus for everyone. And today, AVP Marson will share how we are purposely addressing campus climate via our Title VI non-discrimination program. Finally, we are prioritizing building, supporting, and aligning partnerships with system-wide colleagues, academic and administrative leaders, Collaboration is essential to our success, and as we work closely with our communities across the institution, we ensure that our efforts are impactful, sustained, and reflective of the needs of all stakeholders. By aligning our resources and expertise, we're creating a cohesive approach to advancing equity and diversity throughout the University of Minnesota system. Very excited about this slide. So in 2022, the Office for Equity and Diversity appointed 2 faculty fellows to help advance the university's diversity, equity, and inclusion mission and goals. This year, we invited applications from faculty throughout the system, and we have hired a cohort of 4 faculty members who will engage in strategic work on advancing disability justice, health equity and access, understanding and improving campus climate, and building and strengthening relationships between higher education, indigenous communities, and tribal nations. Each faculty member is appointed for 1 year with the possibility of renewing the appointments for additional years. Actually, one of our faculty fellows, Professor Arriaga, is coming back for his 3rd year with our office. Our OED faculty fellows have also had the opportunity to engage with students in our projects, and therefore they're providing a unique mentorship and teaching experience to our students. And now I am delighted to turn over to AVP Parma so that we can continue with our presentation. Oops, sorry. We're sharing the same script. Our printer was not misbehaving.
Good morning, everyone. I am happy to have the opportunity to share some of the OED programs and initiatives that aim to diversify our community of scholars, create pathways to diversify our student body, and to understand the experiences of the University of Minnesota's students, staff, and faculty. The University of Minnesota's President's Postdoctoral Fellowship Program is an initiative that aims to diversify our community of scholars. The program prepares recent PhD recipients for tenure-track faculty positions by offering postdoctoral research fellowships, professional development, and faculty mentoring to outstanding scholars in all fields. Our program builds on the 40-year success of the University of California's nationwide program. As a member of this network, Minnesota joins the 10-campus University of California system and institutions such as the University of Michigan, University of Colorado, the California Alliance, which includes Stanford University and Caltech, the University of Maryland, NYU, Georgia Tech, and Carnegie Mellon University. Since joining the program in 2017, the University of Minnesota has consistently attracted large numbers of qualified applicants from around the country. We have hosted 61 postdocs, 60 have secured tenure-track positions across the country, and 1 scholar is working for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. 15 of the postdocs are now in tenure-track positions at the University of Minnesota. We are working with leaders from the Duluth and Morris campuses to expand this program to become a system-wide initiative. The CORE program creates pathways to diversify our student body. CORE is a community outreach initiative that supports sustained relationships between the University of Minnesota and middle and high school students and their families, with a focus on families and students from groups that are historically underrepresented in higher education. The program has ongoing partnerships with multiple middle and high schools throughout the Twin Cities. During the academic year, CORE hosts a monthly weekend family engagement program called the Saturday Scholars that routinely brings over 100 families and students to campus. They also lead a community outreach CORE Roadshow, where they bring our university faculty, students, and staff to middle schools to host STEM engagement events. CORE also partners with the missions and several other units to provide a college and career readiness program. Since 2021, the CORE program has served 1,900 students and family members, engaged 55 STEM partners, and 190 STEM facilitators that include University of Minnesota faculty, graduate students, undergraduate students, and staff members. This year, they're looking into plans to connect with the system campuses for this work. These sustained partnerships with K-12 communities and families are essential to creating pathways for future generations to join the University of Minnesota. In 2023, the University of Minnesota administered our first system-wide DEI campus climate survey to students, staff, and faculty on all 5 campuses to understand their experiences at our institution. This initiative is in response to recommendations that were shared in 2021 from the Association of American Universities Advisory Board on Racial Equity in Higher Education and recommendations from the University of Minnesota's system-wide external DEI review that were shared in a report in 2022. We prepared for this survey with support from colleagues at the University of Michigan and in collaboration with the University of Illinois and Rutgers. Because we are part of a collaborative effort, we will be able to benchmark our progress against peer institutions. This can help identify areas where the University of Minnesota is excelling and areas where we may need to catch up. We shared some of the high-level findings and the system-wide executive summary at the October 2023 Board of Regents meeting. Since then, we have hosted meetings to share reports with system campus chancellors and their leadership and DEI teams, each Twin Cities dean and their leadership teams, academic and administrative units, Senate committees, student government leaders, and faculty staff associations. The executive summaries for each campus are now posted on the Campus Climate webpage. We are also finalizing a Campus Climate dashboard that provides detailed disaggregated data. The survey results show areas where we are doing well. For example, 77.3% of all faculty, staff, and students who responded agree or strongly agree that they are treated with respect at the University of Minnesota. And 74.9% agree or strongly agree that the university has had a positive influence on their professional and academic growth. It also highlights areas where we need to focus more attention to address issues, such as the finding that only 58.4% of our faculty, staff, and students who responded are satisfied or very satisfied with the campus climate they have experienced. For broad findings like this, we recognize further qualitative investigation is warranted, and this could include formal focus groups, interviews, or informal discussions. The key is to find out more about the areas of strength that should be emphasized and expanded, and areas for improvement that must be addressed with more attention and resources. Evidence-based actions are being taken at the campus, college, and unit level. We are collecting this information and will host a system-wide DEI Campus Climate Summit where we can share ideas and challenges and action plans to continue to strengthen campus climate for all students, faculty, and staff. And now I will turn things back to Vice President Ramirez-Fernandez. Thank you.
With respect to supporting our faculty and instructor, the Office for Equity and Diversity Education program offers a suite of courses for instructors and departments entitled Teaching with Intention. New to this suite is our latest offering, Teaching in Times of Crisis, built in collaboration with partners from the College of Vet Medicine and the University of Minnesota Duluth Equity and Diversity Initiatives. Teaching in Times of Crisis is a self-paced, asynchronous course that all instructors are welcome to enroll in. The primary goal of this course is to enable our instructors to feel more confident, meeting the needs of their students in moments of crisis. Faculty do not always know when our students are experiencing crisis, but we do know that at a given moment, our students are impacted by personal, interpersonal, local, national, and international events that can have a significant impact on their resilience, their retention, and academic success. This course then aims to support instructors on being as prepared as possible to support students throughout those moments. The actual impetus of this course emerged in the wake of the October 7th attacks and the expansion of the Israel-Hamas-Palestine war, and amidst rising concerns about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on our campus. The education program worked with campus partners with shared identities to co-create the Teaching in Times of Crisis last fall. We first piloted the course in December of 2023 with a range of community members, faculty, staff, and administrators, and then redeveloped and piloted the current version of the course again in July of 2024. This repiloting was as a result of the feedback that we received. During the latter half of the past summer, we worked to transform what was originally a synchronous workshop into the asynchronous course that all instructors across our system are now able to complete. The basis of this course are 5 evergreen modules, and the first module introduces participants to why this course was developed and how it can support instructors and their students. The module 2 helps instructors to proactively build a classroom container that can support the students and themselves during an unfolding crisis or an issue escalations before issues arise. Module 3 provides instructors with a range of somatic stress and relief practices to help themselves and their students manage stress that can undermine their success. Module 4 layouts what a trauma-informed pedagogies are and help instructors consider how this might be incorporated into their classrooms. And finally, the 5th module shares tools and models for fostering conversations, as well as to how knowledge impacts intervene when conversations go wrong and repair relationships when intentions are not aligned with impacts. Our office, in collaboration with the College of Liberal Arts, has also developed a diversity, inclusion, justice, and equity project for our faculty, grad students, staff, postdoctoral fellows, and community members. These modules were developed to introduce our employees, grad students, and postdocs to what these terms and values mean to our community, in the same way that the Go for Equity project introduces all incoming first-year students and transfer students to these values when they first join our campus community. The education program is also supporting several dialogue projects in our community, from working with an interfaith student group and essential partners on an interfaith dialogue, Bridging Beliefs, Exploring Interfaith and Anti-Racism is scheduled for November 10th, and to collaborating with the Center for Education and Innovation from the Provost Office on the Try to Love the Questions, from debate to dialogue in the classroom, and in Life Book Club for community members focused on building their capacity and commitment dialogue. And these are system-wide efforts. The education program and OED are also engaged in ongoing work to support capacity building for dialogues within and outside the classroom. And finally, our education program, in collaboration with our friends in the Office of Student Affairs and Student Counseling Services, the SCS, continues to support affinity spaces, specifically the new spaces created for our Jewish and Palestinian Arab Muslim students, as well as ongoing spaces for faculty and staff. And now it is my pleasure to turn it over to AVP Marisam for her remarks.
Good morning.
Oopsie.
One of OED's key system-wide focuses for the next year is updating the university's Title VI program. As context, Title VI is a federal law that prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin, including based on shared ancestry and ethnic characteristics. So, for example, Title VI prohibits discrimination based on Jewish, Israeli, Palestinian, Muslim, Arab ancestry and ethnic characteristics. So what is the university's responsibility here? Under Title VI, the university must take reasonable steps to eliminate a hostile environment that's caused by discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. And in general, a hostile environment is created under Title VI when biased conduct is so severe or pervasive that it limits an individual's access to the university's programs or activities. Title VI is enforced by the Office for Civil Rights in the U.S. Department of Education, and this office has been very active in the Title VI space over the past year. In the past several months, the Office for Civil Rights has released 7 resolution agreements with other universities that resolve Title VI matters, including with Michigan and Illinois from the Big Ten. All of these resolution agreements focused on complaints of bias related to Jewish or Muslim identities. And in each of those resolution agreements, the Office for Civil Rights found that the institution's responses to Title VI complaints were deficient. So we have been closely reviewing these resolution agreements, as have all of our national peers, to better understand our enforcement agencies' interpretation of the laws and to identify effective practices that we can adopt. Oh, thank you. So to align with the Office for Civil Rights' recent guidance and really to improve our Title VI program, we're making a number of updates this year. First, we are designating our Equal Opportunity and Title IX office as the institutional office that's responsible for evaluating and overseeing our responses to all Title VI reports system-wide. The Office for Civil Rights has indicated that institutions should have one office that has clear overall responsibility for the Title VI program. So we're implementing a process whereby all reports, whether they come in to a bias response team or a student conduct office or human resources or elsewhere, are funneled to Equal Opportunity and Title IX. Equal Opportunity and Title IX has long served as this office that coordinates the university's system-wide anti-discrimination process, but it previously didn't have eyes on every single report that came in system-wide. Second, we're creating a framework to ensure that for every Title VI report we receive, the university makes an individualized written assessment of whether a hostile environment was created, and if so, what steps were taken to eliminate it and redress it. The Office for Civil Rights has made clear that this written assessment is required for each report. And in all of those 7 resolution agreements, the Office for Civil Rights found that those institutions had not met this requirement to complete this written assessment. Third, we're working to develop new strategies to redress a hostile environment. And here the Office for Civil Rights has recently emphasized that educational institutions need to effectively redress a hostile environment, even when that hostile environment is created by protected speech. And this is a significant new and tricky compliance emphasis, which was actually the focus of much of the recent resolution agreements that I mentioned. And the tricky piece is that in cases where protected speech is causing a hostile environment for some community members, a response of a formal investigation and disciplinary action is not permissible. Yet we must find ways to eliminate and redress that hostile environment. So we really need to focus on developing other non-disciplinary response strategies in these cases to meet our Title VI obligations and ensure a non-discriminatory environment for our community members. We already have a number of these strategies in place, but I think this will be a really generative time in the Title VI space as we and our national peers are identifying new effective practices. Finally, in FY25, we're newly providing specific training on Title VI obligations to our system-wide student conduct, bias response, housing, and equal opportunity and Title IX professionals. We're also newly providing more general training on Title VI to all employees this March. Overall, we think that these updates to our Title VI program will better position us relative to the Office for Civil Rights' recent guidance, and most importantly, will create a more inclusive campus environment for our community members. Another of OED's key system-wide focuses for FY25 is promoting disability justice. One of our strategies in this area is the recent creation of a new system-wide Office for Digital Accessibility. This new office is a partnership between the Office for Equity and Diversity and the Office of Information Technology. Over the next year, this new office will focus on implementing new federal regulations on digital accessibility under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So these new regulations require that the university bring its digital content into compliance with a specified accessibility standard by April 2026. This will be an immense project as the university's digital content that must come into compliance reaches far beyond just our websites to all of our digital documents, videos, web-based and mobile applications, and online course content in our learning management system. So this effort will require significant skill building in our community on how to create accessible content. And our new Office for Digital Accessibility will serve as the university's subject matter experts and will greatly help us to organize and coordinate this work. Finally, a second strategy for promoting disability justice that we wanted to highlight is the work of the Twin Cities Disability Resource Center and our disability resource professionals on each campus. These offices are working incredibly hard to meet the demand for disability resource services, which have increased substantially in a number of areas over the past 10 years. For example, since 2014, the students served annually by the Twin Cities Disability Resource Center more than doubled, from around 2,000 to over 55,000. The accommodated exams administered annually have also more than doubled, and the number of access assistance provided annually has more than quadrupled. We are working to develop even more efficient and effective ways to meet this increased demand for disability services. As one example, we have invested in some great new technology that is really scaling up our ability to provide accessible content to community members. In particular, the Office of Informational Technology has invested in accessibility checking software to assist university members in creating accessible web and online course content. In addition, the Office for Equity and Diversity has invested in assistive technology software that provides access to content for disabled individuals, while also reducing the need for costly and time-intensive individualized accommodations. So in the coming year, we will continue leveraging our new Office for Digital Accessibility, the system-wide work of our disability resource centers, as well as these new technological tools to advance disability justice at the university. Thank you for providing us this opportunity to share some of our system-wide DEI initiatives with you. We would love to hear your perspectives and answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As my colleagues work to think up what comments or questions they may have, let me ask a couple questions. I'm referring to the slide a couple slides ago, improving campus climate through our Title VI non-discrimination program. And the third bullet there, developing new strategies to redress hostile environments in Title VI that involve protective speech. Can you give us a sense of the new strategies that you are working on? Because this is such a complicated area where we have such a strong commitment to protected speech, but at the same time providing a welcoming environment, an environment that certainly isn't violating Title VI. So if you could share with us a little bit more about the new strategies that are under consideration or underway.
Thank you, Chair Mayeron, for that question. When we think about responding to Title VI or other discrimination complaints, I often think about three buckets. One, we need to respond to the person who's reporting that they've been harmed with supportive resources, with accommodations that they may need to continue accessing school or work. We've long been doing that and I think are pretty strong in that area. The second bucket is we need to address the conduct. This is the accountability bucket, the conduct that harmed someone. Sometimes that's addressed through a formal, student conduct or discrimination policy process. Other times that's not an available option because maybe the conduct is more low level, even though harmful, or maybe the conduct is protected speech, which is not something that we can discipline. In those cases, we look at other accountability measures such as coaching conversations, the offer of mentoring and educational resources, sometimes monitoring, to kind of meet that accountability bucket and to try to educate our community members so hopefully the harmful conduct doesn't happen again. The third bucket is a little bit the more tricky one where I think we have some development work to do, and that is kind of the impact of the conduct on the larger community. And, one of the steps that we're taking and that we've seen as an effective practice in some of these resolution agreements is to look beyond just the person who's reported that they've been harmed by the conduct, right? So, for example, if in a, student housing complaint comes forward that there was, biased comment put on an individual's whiteboard, We may go beyond just reaching out to that impacted individual to having housing do check-ins in the hall to anyone who might have seen or been impacted by, what was on that whiteboard, and thinking of broader strategies of how can we provide support, education, resources to that community to address any broader impact that might have happened. So that is the main area where we, and frankly all of our peers, are looking to develop new effective strategies.
My second question has to do with the next slide. And you talk about, I guess it's the second bullet. And it refers to the federal digital accessibility regulations. Can you give us a better sense of what's in there for those of us who don't understand this?
So these are new regulations under the Americans with Disability Act, and it is the first time that law is really specifically highlighting obligations related to the accessibility of digital content. And the main requirement for public entities, so state and local governments as well, as well as educational institutions, is that all of our digital content needs to meet now this accessibility standard. So there's probably 30 different categories of ways that our digital content needs to be accessible, but some of the examples are we need to make sure that we use heading structures so that screen readers can navigate through documents. We need to make sure that we have appropriate color contrast so that it is accessible. We need to make sure that our links are written in a way that they provide meaningful information to all of the users, including folks using screen readers. So there's a long list of kind of accessibility requirements within that new standard.
Thank you. Other questions? Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Maron, and thank you for your presentation, Vice President Fernandez. And I had the great pleasure of working with Associate Vice Presidents Varma and Marisam during my time in OED. And I still think you folks have one of the harder jobs because frequently you're dealing with people that are not happy. And I know you get called with complaints a lot, and I know how hard the work is and how difficult. But the way I like the way you've presented this, because as a lot of states look at doing away with offices like this, there's clearly a statutory framework as to why you need to exist, whether it's Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, Title IX, but especially the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that, as a former prof, touched everybody, every classroom. And I was just wondering how much of your staff is devoted to just the implementation and the needs of Americans with disabilities.
Chair Maron and Regent Tad Johnson, thank you very much for the comments and for the affirmation. I would like to, provide some perhaps, contextual comments, and then I would welcome my colleague and friend, AVP Marisam, to address, kind of like the specifics of numbers. But since we're working with this new team for the past, 2 years, one of the primary guiding principles for us is just how do we bring all of our values into the center to make sure that we are working on behalf of all of the people at the University of Minnesota. So in the past, and I have worked at other institutions where the compliance space is locked away and they do their work. It's intense work. It's very difficult work. And then other areas that are working on climate matters or education are not connected. So one of the things that we have been doing, particularly the three of us, and then one of our other colleagues, AVP Lindquist, who was downstairs, giving the keynote address to an event that is around racial justice, across the state. So she couldn't be here with us today. It's about how does the education piece infuses the work of compliance, and likewise, all of this regulatory and important information is also needed across all areas of the work. So I will say that, throughout our conversations, matters of disability justice are present in for all of us. And we will just conduct, consultations, with our colleagues at the Disability Resources Center, but people are developing kind of like a disability justice kind of queue, like an intelligence and awareness that in everything that we do, we need to make sure that everything is accessible. For example, when we did, we just have the websites for the DEI campus-wide or system-wide campus climate survey. Our colleagues at the DRC and with OIT also provided us with how to put that onto the website so that it will be accessible. So we are ahead of a lot of the requirements that are now like a legal responsibility for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mayor, Regent Johnson. In terms of the kind of number of personnel that we have working in this area, quite a few. This is a very high-touch, kind of labor-intensive area. I think we probably have 60 to 70 folks working in this area on the Twin Cities campus right now. Maybe a quarter of those are the folks that work directly with students to gather their medical records and identify accommodations and communicate that with instructors or supervisors. I think about 9% of our students on the Twin Cities campus are registered with the Disability Resource Center, so that's a very high touch area. We also have a group that works on employee accommodations in a similar way. We have a testing function that administers 10 to 12,000 or more exams each year. We also have interpreting and captioning units, as well as digital accessibility work that provides support and organization, and also audits our various digital content. So it's a big operation.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. President Cunningham.
First of all, with great thanks to the team, a couple high-level notes as I've come in and gotten to know the great work of your office. I mean, one is how long the office has existed, which was not a reaction to any recent events or path. It's been a long-standing, very forthright thinking office, and I think that shows by how mature of an operation you have here now. It is not usual in many places to have the compliance interlinked, and I think that showed a lot of foresight by having that linked together, and how, just for folks to understand, that's a great value that those are totally linked together here. I wanted to make the connection to a conversation we had yesterday on peak and how that intersects with work like this. When you hear that we need to have disability websites and things like that compliant all across, as those sorts of regulations come down across the university, having a modern business organization and a modern communication structure is what allows that to be implemented in a uniform way. So I just want to reconnect those two threads. One of the things we get from peak is the efficiency and compliance, being compliant quickly and easily disseminated. And it's shown here in how we're going to now have the structure in place to be able to disseminate the disability accessibility digital requirements across the system in a way that we would not be able to do without this in the same uniformity, and to be sure of it. So I just want to connect those two streams. When people think peak, they think one thing. I want them to think about this sort of thing and how it impacts our business practices and what comes up quickly. And then the other part is, as I came in this year, Title VI is on everybody's mind. There was around the country many highlights of Title VI. And I was pleased to see what good position we're in here for Title VI. I felt, after having some close conversations with the team, felt really good that we're in a good position with all the reasons that you talked about here. The climate is evolving quickly in this area. The rules are evolving quickly, and we're really well positioned from my perspective. So I just wanted to pass that on with thanks.
Thank you very much. Regent Hipsch.
Thank you, Chair Maron. Thank you. I agree with Regent Johnson's assessment. You guys have a very difficult job, and it's made more difficult in the last year with everything going on. But I got a question on Title VI. So when free speech leads to hostility and hostility leads to fear, At what point do we elevate from non-disciplinary actions to disciplinary actions? Because I think it's going to have to go there, because no person should have to walk across the campus and be afraid. You can be angry about some stuff. I get that, okay, but being afraid is a whole different feeling, I think, than being angry, okay? So at what point does it become disciplinary, is my question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mayor and Regent Hitch. Thank you for that question. I agree, right? Even protected speech can cause a great deal of harm. And there are exceptions where we can proceed with kind of disciplinary action for speech, but the exceptions are limited, right? For sure, if there's a direct threat to someone. There's also an exception for discriminatory harassment that needs to meet a rather high legal threshold. But if we have kind of, bigoted, biased conduct that is directed at an individual in a way that's severe, persistent, and pervasive, and making it so they can't access the university. Those are cases where we are able to proceed with a disciplinary process, but under the legal precedent, it's a narrow category.
Quick follow-up.
Yes, yep.
How about on a group? You said on an individual. How about if a groups are going at, a little bit tougher, probably.
Thank you, Regent Hitch, for that follow-up. That's more difficult. I think that's more of a gray area. There certainly could be some circumstances if there's threats or, serious intimidation involved. But typically, I think what the law is looking for is for conduct that's targeted at an individual.
Thank you.
All right, Regent Verheugen.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and really appreciate the presentation. It's helpful to know how many moving parts are happening. It's kind of like a duck paddling, right? That looks super calm and serene, but there's a lot going on under the water surface. Associate Vice President Marisam, you mentioned a couple statistics that really should catch everyone's attention around the number of students and the increase since 2014 to be served by the DRC, the number of exams which have to be administered and the personnel that need to be employed to do all of that, and then the number of hours of increased support services that have been supplied. All of those cost money and cost real money, and looking to what needs to happen with the compliance of our digital resources and digitization of those resources as well by April 2026. That's a lot of work to be done, and while it would be nice to snap our fingers and just have it all finished, it will require a lot of people devoting time to those things, because you can't just push an easy button. Has there been any sort of quantification of what those efforts have cost and will cost? Because every decision that we make around finances requires that money comes from somewhere. And compliance is a fundamental function of this university. And I think we often forget that all of that compliance costs a lot of time and money.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing President Cunningham.
Chair Mayron and Regent Verheugen, and I don't know whether the team wants to gander those costs or not right now, but I would say when we talk about the concern of administrative bloat, and we talk about, what the university needs funds to do for these are administrators that do this hard work that has increased in scale and scope over the time of and budgets, with the budgets that are declining. And so when we talk about the need to not cut administration more, we can't cut more, especially when services are expanding. And as we increase enrollment, the percent numbers to increase enrollment numbers are also higher, which will require more services. And so you'll hear this as a constant refrain. And I know it's there's a public perception on administration, but as these services are real and they grow with increased enrollment and increased student numbers, and we have to continue to fund them to serve our students. So, and I don't know whether you want to gander at the costs or not. We could perhaps follow up with you. Yeah.
And I am okay with not a true quantification, but this is the conversation I wanted to get to, which is the funds to do this are not just, growing on a tree somewhere. we have really great researchers and innovators, but we haven't gotten there yet with that invention.
Any comment from the table or?
Yes, thank you, Chair Mayeron and President Cunningham and Regent Verhalen. Thank you for acknowledging the work that is growing and the cost of that work and the importance of it. I think my opinion is that we are one of the kind of top most advanced disability resource functions in the country. We're nationally known and we have significant staffing, and we also have very nimble staff that is working hard as the demands grow to find ways to create efficiencies. So for example, the assistive technology that we have adopted is reducing the number of person hours that we need to do note taking and other work. Our student services division was in the last couple of years having longer wait times for students at like the beginning of the semester, over 3-4 weeks to wait to meet with someone. And they developed a new process that cut wait time down to below 2 weeks, the last that I had seen. So as the demands grow, there also is an impetus for more efficient structures and to rely more on technology. So I think both are true. We're trying to use it as an opportunity to innovate, but the demands are growing, especially in that digital accessibility push from now until April 2026.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you so much.
All right, Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation and the conversation, colleagues. Just a few comments. One, the inaugural survey. I mean, I think that's interesting. We've always had surveys on every campus, and our campuses are so different that it's hardly ever productive to just take a number here and and compare. But it is helpful to kind of have that baseline, although the context probably still has to be at a campus level because we know that the situations are so different there. And I think we all empathize with your work because it doesn't end, as education is, you do good work and then your good work graduates and leaves and then, you start over again. So definitely as a continuous thing. Just a couple other things to point out. The pathway programs that were highlighted here, I think they were always important. I think they're even more important just with recent decisions. I mean, the university is committed to and is going to follow the law, but there's ways to continue to uphold our principles, right? And pathway programs are, a key one because the bigger the pie is, the bigger the pie is in terms of the pipeline. So that's really important, and I'm glad to see that highlighted here. We spent a bit of time talking about disability services, and I'm glad we have because, at least speaking for myself, I think that's a piece of equity that I think I've learned more about and wasn't always thinking of consciously and aware of. And I think that'd be possibly the same for other people. So I've appreciated the fact that not just today, but I want to say over the past year or two, the board, we had Director Hall here. I don't think that's something I remember, seeing in my earlier time. So really appreciate the emphasis on that area. And, with that, we have a unique and really wonderful opportunity with our university, specifically the Twin Cities campus, hosting the Special Olympics in 2026, which when we talked about that years ago, it was like, oh, that's so far away. I mean, that is coming up, right? And I hope with that, we're the physical host, but I hope we go beyond that and find ways to really engage to tap into our academic strength in that area and just really, really embrace the mission of that organization and that event. And I think it'll just be an opportunity for our whole campus community to engage more and think about an area of equity that I think some of us probably don't often enough. So, thank you.
Thank you, Regent Turner. And then we will move on to our next topic.
Thank you, Chair Mayeron. In regards to administrative bloat, so we need to bloat it just a little bit more and come up with a whole, and we probably are, strategy of telling our stories. And I've heard this over and over again. And in regards to the disabled and the people that benefit from your great work that you say is nationwide renowned. Well, the people that need to hear it not so renowned. They're up at Capitol Hill. And we need to figure out a way to bring the people to the Capitol to tell those stories that benefit from this. Because I'm in this short time that I've been in this role at the Capitol, I'm already tired of hearing about this administrative bloat and what they perceive it as. And we've just got to do a better job all around of telling the story of what that entails. Because a lot of this administrative bloat comes from regulations and things that the government passes down to us. So that would be my small ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to conclude, I think your remarks and the remarks of President Cunningham and others are so on point that, and as Regent Verhalen said, all of this services that we are providing, which when I went to the university in the previous century, the university wasn't called upon to address. It just wasn't on their radar screen. And now we have all of these services that we are expected or required to provide that don't appear on paper to be directly related to our mission of education, research, and extension. But in order to have individuals graduate from our institution and graduate hopefully within 4 years and move on successfully, we need to serve them in a variety of different ways that we were never called upon before. And our partners over at the legislature, I think, sometimes don't recognize that is part of our overall cost and expectation. And somebody, as Regent Verhalen said, has to pay for it. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to provide it, and either the students pay for it, and nobody's going to like that, or the legislature has to kick in, or again, we're back to looking for other limited resources to pay for these very important services, whether in the area you're talking about, or as we've talked about, health, safety, well-being of students, the role that we have now taken on as a university. It costs money, and we need support from our partners to do it. And I would like to stop using the phrase administrative bloat. I don't want to buy into it anymore, period, end of statement. So it's not just restating it. I don't want to use that phrase anymore because somehow it gives voice to something that just is not an accurate description of what's going on. So thank you very much for your presentation. And if my colleagues are okay, we will just keep moving forward, and to the extent you need a rest stop, go for it yourself. All right. Our next item on the agenda is going to be an update. This is the 7th item. It's an overview of intercollegiate athletic programs at Crookston, Duluth, and Morris. I'd like to invite Crookston's Director of Athletics, Stephanie Helgeson, Duluth's Director of Athletics, Forrest Carr, the Morris Director of Athletics, Matthew Johnson, to the presenters table. And with that, whoever wants to go first, have at it. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Marin, board members of the Regents, and President Rebecca Cunningham. Thank you for letting us be here today and have a presentation. We're excited to share a little bit about our prospective campuses. So I will go ahead and start. My name is Stephanie Helgeson, Director of Athletics at the University of Minnesota Crookston. We're a member of the NCAA Division II Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference. We joined the conference in 1999. At that time, the league had 8 teams, and we moved to 10 teams as a couple schools joined us. We play in a 4-state area: Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. We have a 15-team league, and in the fall of 25, we'll be adding the University of Jamestown to our portfolio. We have 14 sports on our campus, 12 that are in the NCAA, and we have an emerging sport in Division II, which is our equestrian program, and we have both jump seat and Western. We've got 2 club sports as well with our hockey team and our USA clay track team. So we've got about 290 student athletes, 235 that are varsity student athletes, and 55 that are club. We've got 78 new student athletes this past fall, and we've got about 40 staff members on our campus. We also have men's club soccer in our portfolio and men's club volleyball that's run through our recreational center on campus. Academically, our students do very well. In 2024, we won the Division II President's Award for Academic Excellence. We were one of 3 schools in the Northern Sun to win that award and one of 44 in Division II. Overall, our student athletes' GPAs are 3.3, and we have an academic success rate of 90%. We had 82 student athletes named to the Northern Sun All-Academic Team this past year. Some of the priorities for us in our athletic program are student athlete experience and providing life in the balance. I get to meet with our Student Athletic Advisory Committee every couple of weeks, and one of the things we did this past year was to add an athletic fueling station for our student athletes. They felt that was one of our greatest needs. So that is one way that we've enhanced our student athlete experience. We also have enhanced our athletic facilities by adding additional branding in our building, in our locker rooms, in our gymnasium, and also added a new Athletic Hall of Fame video board interactive for our alumni that come to campus. We also have a subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That involves some of our student athletes, our senior women's administrator, some of our staff, and our director of diversity on our campus that do a lot of educational programming throughout the year with our students, faculty, and staff. So that's been an exciting new adventure. We All Belong is our slogan in our campaign for that, and that's gone over very well. I'm very proud of those individuals that continue to move that forward. We've obviously seen an uptick in mental health in our athletic programs across the country and how important that is. We've been able to partner with Dr. Erin Haugen. She's a sports psychologist out of Grand Forks, North Dakota. She also works with the UND athletic program, but that's just been a great partnership for us. She comes to our campus twice a month to visit with our student athletes and provide programming, and then we're also able to have individual sessions with her for our student athletes if they choose to do that. Some of our major team accomplishments, our tennis program had the best season ever in 2024, making the Northern Sun Conference Tournament. Maddie Schneider earned the prestigious Willis R. Kelly Award, presented to the top female student athlete in the Northern Sun Conference. She's also been nominated for the NCAA Woman of the Year. Maddie is a senior. She's an international student from Germany, and she's just an amazing young woman. A software engineering major. She's actually working for DigiKey out of the Bloomington office right now, so we're very proud of our student athletes and some of their successes. Our baseball program has made the NSIC tournament the last 6 of the 9 seasons and done an amazing job. Being able to recruit a lot of local talent to our campus has been a game changer in that program. And really, all of our 14 athletic programs have seen improvements in records due to the reinvestment in our programs after we dropped our football program in 2019. The ability for us to add additional scholarship dollars, increase our roster sizes, and increase our coaching staff has made a big difference in all of our programs across the board. Last week, for the first time ever, we had ECAC Player of the Week in our equestrian program. A senior, Alexander Wetland from Colorado Springs, competed in equitation over fences, and she beat Delaware State and South Carolina. So our equestrian student athletes do an amazing job too at a very, very high level. So very proud of our students and their accomplishments. As far as finances go, our budget's about $5.6 million. You can see that a lot of that, about half goes to salary and benefits, and approximately almost 30% goes to student aid. So about 80% of that there. What's next for UMC Athletics? We'd like to continue to increase our staffing needs. We'd like to have a full-time athletic academic advisor dedicated to our athletic program. We do not currently have anybody full-time in marketing, and we'd like to enhance our fundraising opportunities by hiring a athletic development director in the future. Those are our main staffing needs, along with hiring some assistant coaches in some of our sports to continue to grow there. We'd also like to continue to increase our scholarships. Most of our sports, about 75%, are fully funded. We still have room to grow in our women's equestrian program, women's golf programs, soccer, tennis, and women's cross-country programs. And probably one of our greatest needs is our athletic facilities, and I know some of the Board of Regents have been able to come and visit our campus and look at our facilities. Thank you. So the oldest part of our building was built in 1930, and that was Knudsen Hall. And right now, that's our current student-athlete weight room. There's no ventilation up there, no air conditioning. And so this fall, when it got really warm up there, we had to halt practices and rearrange things because there's just no ventilation or air in that part of the building. Our gymnasium was built in 1980, which is a beautiful facility. We were able to upgrade that in 2017 with new bleachers, seat backs, new floor, scoreboards, and working on finishing that off with a video board in there. The ability for us to enhance our sports medicine area, some of you have seen that area as well. That's about 200 square feet for a total of 300 student athletes, which is very, very small. And then the ability to add a new indoor facility for our sports, the ability to add track and field, to add about 60 to 80 student athletes would be a game changer for our campus. That would also allow our baseball, softball, soccer programs, and our women's tennis program a home to be able to be proud of and have a good student athlete experience. I know in the future, capital planning will be here to present to you, I believe, in December, but we've been working very closely with them the last 9 months and looking at our facilities and how we can enhance our athletic programs and provide an exceptional student athlete experience. With that, I'll turn it over to Forrest.
Thanks, Steph. Thank you, Chair Mayron and President Cunningham and members of the Board of Regents for having us here. My name is Forrest Carr. I'm the Director of Athletics at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. One of the unique things about our department is that we participate in 3 different conferences. So the slide has a graphic there. Our women's hockey team participates in the Western Collegiate Hockey Association. There are 8 members of the conference, including the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. It's a very strong conference, having won 20 of the 23 NCAA championships that have been offered, including UMD's 5 national championships and 2 runner-up finishes. Our Division II sports are members of the Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference. That conference is made up of 15 schools and will go to 16 schools with the addition of the University of Jamestown in 2025. UMD football has won 2 national championships, and the UMD women's basketball team was a national runner-up in 2023. So the Northern Sun Conference has been a great home for UMD athletics. Men's hockey is a member of the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, the NCHC. NCHC schools have won 6 of the last 10 NCAA championships. This year, the conference expanded from 8 schools to 9 with the addition of Arizona State University, and the University of St. Thomas will join the conference in 2026. UMD has won 3 national championships in men's hockey and 2 national runner-up finishes. Academically, we have 16 varsity sports with over 390 student athletes. The department-wide student athlete grade point average was 3.43 in the spring of 2024. Most recent academic success rate report was 87%. That takes a look at things similar to the federal graduation rate report, but it also includes the success of transfer students. And both of our hockey programs achieved perfect 1,000 NCAA Division I academic progress rate scores for the most recent reporting period. In addition, football offensive lineman Eric Johnson earned the 2024 Northern Sun Scholar Athlete of the Year Award across all sports, and women's hockey forward Clara Van Wieren earned the 2024 WCHA Student Athlete of the Year Award. UMD has a long, storied, proud tradition of success. Recently, in 2023-24, 8 Bulldog teams were ranked in the top 25 nationally. Football finished the season with a record of 9-2. Volleyball participated in the NCAA tournament for the 2nd consecutive year, men's basketball for the 3rd consecutive year, and women's hockey for the 4th consecutive year. In the community, UMD student athletes continue to make a difference with over 3,000 hours of community engagement during this past year. We started the UMD Department of Athletics Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council in the fall of 2022. They've been very active, including youth clothing drives. They are currently working on putting the land acknowledgement on our video boards before competitions. There's a photo there on the slide of the group, the screening of the Loyola project. We also had Gabby Hughes, who there's a photo of that as well. She won the 2023 Hockey Humanitarian Award for her work with Sophie's Squad to improve the mental health of youth athletes. This last year, we had the University Student Athlete Advisory Committee held a Be the Match drive in Romano Gymnasium. UMD football student athlete Curtis Cox was notified that he was a match, and he made the decision to donate bone marrow and save the life of a 2-year-old boy. Another part of our mission to support the community is hosting large events. We will be hosting the 2025 Quick Trip WCHA Final Face-Off event this spring. We'll also be hosting the 2025 Northern Sun Outdoor Track and Field Championships. And we were just notified a couple weeks ago that our bid was selected to host the 2027 NCAA Women's Hockey Frozen Four. The pie charts here summarize our revenue sources and expenditures. We rely on generating about $1 million a year in philanthropy, $1 million a year in corporate sponsorships. We have student fee support of $1.5 million, $2.5 million in ticket sales, small amount of media rights, and then institutional support this year budgeted at $5.7 million. On the expenditure side, salary and benefits 44%, and student aid 23%. So those two categories make up about 2/3 of our budget. And then we have some lease expenses, team travel, and supplies and services. Overall budget, planning to spend $14.1 million in FY25. And then what's next for UMD athletics? Continuing to prioritize the health and safety and the holistic student athlete model. This is something that Division I institutions put into place this year for 2024-25. Multi-divisional schools like us, so Division II schools with a Division I sport, will come into compliance with the holistic student athlete model requirements starting in the fall of 2025. So that's our focus right now. That includes things like post-eligibility healthcare coverage and increased mental health support. This past year, Mammoth Sports Consulting completed a detailed Department of Athletics analysis, and they are working with us to help us complete a strategic plan. I think we're on our 3rd draft of the strategic plan, and we'll be sharing that with our campus leadership in November. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Johnson.
Thank you. Chair Mayeron, distinguished regents, President Cunningham, it's great to see you all again. I'm Matt Johnson. It's an honor to be here, and I have a real privilege of serving as Director of Athletics at Minnesota Morris. I'm going to go through some distinguishing features about us that I think make us special. And I don't throw that word around lightly, but we are one of 434 NCAA Division III schools across the United States. We are, as a Division III school, completely non-scholarship. So our student athletes are really those scholar student athletes that we all take a lot of pride in. We happen to be, or we are, the only public Division III school in the entire state of Minnesota. So again, when you look at us versus our regional, as you would call them, competitors, we offer a different service at a different price, and something we're just really proud of, and we're actually only one of 86 public D3 schools in the entire country. In terms of our sport offerings, we've got 19 varsity sports, we've got 10 women's sports, and then 9 on the men's side, and those teams comprise 345 student athletes, making up approximately 1/3 of our student body. When you compare that to other Division III schools across the country, we are right in line with that. The average D3 school has about 33 to 34%, depending on the year. Our athletes, just like my colleagues up here, perform so well in the classroom. We had a cumulative GPA of 3.13 the last academic year, and we had 180 students have at least a 3.0 in their season of competition and recognized as academic all-conference, so something we're incredibly proud of. You can see some of the other honors as well there too, but the last thing I'll highlight specifically is just when you look at our student athletes versus students as a whole, we continue to graduate at a higher rate, offering higher GPAs, and also being retained at a higher rate. So something we're very proud of. As we move on to, again, some distinguishable features, I would say, is Morris is built on partnerships, and not just within athletics, but in our entire campus community. When you look at our athletic facilities, specifically competition ones, we are so incredibly fortunate to have Big Cat Stadium, which is a partnership with our local high school. That's our football field. Just recently, in the spring of 2020, although there was a whole lot of other stuff going on, we were able to secure enough private support and also support from the system as a whole to build a brand new Morris softball complex. Previously, our softball team had played on some older fields. We now have 3 varsity level fields, which again is completely built upon partnership. Our regional fitness center has been in existence since 1999. It operates as what I would call a nice little YMCA. It incorporates the community of Morris, Stevens County as a whole, our students on campus, offering workout opportunities, classes, things that come free of charge to our students but are utilized by Cougar student athletes as a whole. And then our track is a shared facility as well. Those partnerships extend, of course, not just off campus, but with our on-campus partnerships. 2 of them I want to highlight specifically is our Let's Talk, which is a part of the Morris Let's Thrive initiative on campus. And as we all know, student mental health is real. And the issues that our student athletes and our students as a whole face are something that have finally been brought to life. So Morris, rather than kind of acknowledging those, we took a forefront lead and we actually incorporated student counseling right into our athletics building. Our counselors have an office basically adjacent to mine, where student talks happen, where there's counseling sessions, where our sports performance, Gene Williamson is an outstanding resource for us, provides sports consultation to students. Again, addressing the issues that are facing our athletes real and trying to cope with those. And the other one, and I believe Steph referenced as well, a fueling station. And it seems ridiculous to even mention to you, but there were all kinds of regulations about what student athletes could get or couldn't get. They couldn't go and get a bag of goldfish and all these things. Thankfully, the NCAA has deregulated a lot of that. But the financial burdens our students face are still real. So we've got a fueling station where they can go get chocolate milk or a cheese stick or goldfish or you name bananas, apples, things of that. No questions asked, no sign in, no sign out. They just go and they continue to focus on their classroom work, their work on the field, but can have a nice little stack in the meantime too. And then I'm going to take just one brief second to just highlight my amazing staff, or the amazing staff, coaches, and also our administration. So supportive of what our students are as a big part of our culture. In terms of just kind of where we are, I selected the 2019-20 year in specific because obviously things have changed since that point of time. In that school year, we had 300 student athletes on campus. This year, in fall of 24, we reported with 345, as I referenced earlier. It's a 15% increase. But you'll notice and note that our staff didn't increase. What we did was we continued to make good fiscal decisions and empowered our coaches to go out and really sell the mission about what Morris is. And they've just had an incredible amount of success with that. And honestly, I think there's more room for growth with us. 345 is the new reality for us, with 350, 355, 360 on the horizon, I feel. In terms of our finances, like my colleagues shared, a lot of our, in terms of revenue comes from institutional support, which is so appreciated and needed. We do generate about $210,000 through our partnership with our foundation and also fundraising efforts in and across campus. The vast majority, 75% of our expenses fall on the salary side of things. But that also, I want to throw a quick caveat of I do not, or there is not one coach on staff of 75% or greater of full-time staff that does not also have a secondary responsibility on campus. So when we look at FTEs, I'll use my football coach as an example. He's a 70% football coach, and he also teaches 4 credits in our sports management degree. I myself teach in sports studies and athletics. So we really use our people to their best of their abilities. And our sport management degree is one of the biggest degrees growing on campus and serving our students in an area of need. And one point I'll reference to you, and I know you've all been on campus semi-recently for us, and I appreciate that visit. Our building, the Cougar Sports Center, at that point in time, the PE Center, the Physical Education Center, was constructed in 1971. And over the course of the last 50 plus years has almost seen no advancements to it. Now, cosmetically, we have increased our branding. We redid our court a couple of years ago, but the space in itself was planned for 9 varsity sports, of which we had. And as that predates Title IX, we had 0 women's athletics at that point of time. We now, obviously, as we referenced, do. And when it was built in 71, there were 140 student athletes to our 345 today. So the same constraints that others have talked about. We have a small, outdated athletic training room. We have limited locker room space, so much to the point. We have 287 lockers on campus, and yes, I had somebody count. And we have those 345 athletes, so we're actually having some students in certain cases double up. We're waiting till students finish their seasons to clear out of their lockers. it could be better for our students, and ultimately that's what it's all about. The other point I'll reference there is our weight room did not exist in 71. That wasn't a train of thought then. We have one in. It's actually a beautiful space, but as you look at that picture in the low right-hand corner, directly to the right of it is my office. So as weights are banging around, our administrative assistant is there, several of our head coaches, there's noise. And as you head through that wall, if you look directly through the center of that picture and move forward, those are our adjacent classrooms where we teach our sports studies and athletics classes. So is it an every day, every hour, every second hindrance for us? No. But there are a lot of times where it's loud and it's just an interesting setup, I will say. So as everybody else says, there's needs there, and I understand those come with money, right? And everything's centered around dollar signs, and that's not what this is about. But it's a part of continuing to do a great service for our students. And then just with my last slide, I want to highlight the 23-24, our last academic year. I challenged the coaches and all of the student athletes at that student athlete meeting to have the best year the Cougar Athletics has already ever had. I don't know if we hit that, but boy, we were pretty good. We won 3 conference championships with football, women's basketball, and softball. The one for football was the first in 17 years. The one for softball was the first ever. And that is, I think, in no small part to the improvement in facilities there. Cody Nye, a men's thrower for us on the indoor and outdoor track and field time, was one of just 125 individuals selected for the NCAA postgraduate scholarship. They select 21 males and 21 females in every sports season. So again, there was 125 total. So you can take Duke, the University of Minnesota, North Carolina, whatever, and Morris had a student athlete honored for that. It was just amazing. We started a new Cougar Days of Giving, which is a philanthropy effort to generate funds. That was last year new. We just replicated it here a couple weeks ago. We raised more money in that 2-day window than we had raised in the previous fiscal year as an athletic department, so something I'm very proud of. And then lastly, our Cougar Alumni Golf Tournament has continued to grow and really provide a networking opportunity for our alumni to come in and re-impact with our programs. So I thank you for your time, and speaking for my colleagues now, we will certainly field if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments by colleagues? And while you're gathering your thoughts, excellent presentation to give us a sense of what's going on in your various campuses, what you're focusing on. We can see commonalities in terms of how you are paying for your programs and what your expenses are. And we can also see differences between all of the 3 campuses as well. And I think that's important for us to understand. So with that, Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Directors Helgeson, Johnson, Carr. Thank you for your time. In my memory, and maybe ever, this might be our first
since we've been on.
Non-Twin Cities, non-D1 athletic update. So, we're pleased to have you all here and have this conversation. One thing that strikes me, and I think my colleagues as well, is what you're able to do with what you have. The impact you're able to drive, the efficiency, and I don't say efficiency to then downplay, the resource constraints, but it must be recognized. What you're able to do and the dual roles that the staff play and everything like that. So definitely want to acknowledge that. I think, again, we've talked a lot about changes in athletics and specifically Division I athletics. I know the landscape is much different, but in that same vein, I'm sure there are things changing, and I'm sure there's maybe going to be ripple effects. Can you help us understand maybe I'll put it this way, what keeps you up at night, or what is changing and what we need to do to make sure that this is still happening in 10 years, maybe not tomorrow, but in 10 years, that we still have these programs, that they're sustainable, because the impact is real. I mean, I think every single one of your sections highlighted the better outcomes that student athletes have compared to the rest of the classmates in terms of graduation rates, retention, so on and so forth. So again, we know that the changes are different than the other athletic changes that we've been talking about, but like everything else in higher education, it's evolving, right? So where is this headed? How are the conferences changing, and how do we make sure it's sustainable for decades to come?
I guess I'll start, and thank you for the question, Regent Kenyanya. Yeah, I think one thing to always keep in mind is that we are in the education field. So despite all these changes, we want to keep that our number one focus. I also think that the biggest impact on probably our athletic departments, and certainly let Steph and Matt speak to this, the biggest challenge for us has actually been inflation in recent years. I would say that that's a greater challenge than some of these other transformational changes that are happening, trying to keep up with the expenses and finding ways to generate revenue to keep up with that. For us, our department's a little bit different. We do have the Division I men's and women's hockey program, so we have to be fully aware of what's going on in the Division I world. This last week on Monday, there was preliminary approval of the House versus NCAA antitrust class action settlement. Fully aware of the unionization efforts that are going on throughout the country. The Johnson versus NCAA Fair Labor Standards Act case in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, so that's an employment law case. And the best way for me to keep up with those things is to keep in contact with Mark Coyle. So I talked with him this week through Zoom, and we talked about, strategies and sort of plans moving forward. And we both said the same thing, that those were our plans as of 2:15 in the afternoon on Wednesday, October 9th, and that can change quickly. But it was a really good conversation to get his perspective. Another thing that's been nice, the NCAA has been doing a good job of communication on this topic. And so I was on a Zoom call yesterday, and it included the commissioners of single sport conferences and the Coaches Association executive directors of single sport conferences, where NCAA senior counsel sort of updated us on things like what would it mean to opt in to the settlement for schools that are multi-divisional, so schools like us. So we got a good picture of what we can plan for going forward. So those are a few thoughts, but I'll turn it over.
Regent Kenyanya, Madam Chair, thank you. Great question. Different answer from Morris's perspective. As the only sitting member up here that does not offer athletic aid, when we talk about attracting students to the University of Minnesota Morris, it's based on our academic fits and how students can come and have impactful opportunities on their field, on the court, in the pool, et cetera. But they're still paying for it essentially all out of pocket. And the easiest answer to that is, it keeps me up at night thinking, where are all the students? There are a lot of college opportunities in Minnesota and across the region and certainly the United States. And finding ways to communicate the value that Morris provides, that University of Minnesota degree, as a proud alum myself, I know what that is, and speaking to people about that is what I've employed and asked the coaches to do, and the results have been there for it. But again, continuing to push that envelope and certainly wanting to generate revenue resources, but we don't have any media deals. Our ticketing sales are minimal, if any. Ours is built on community and culture, and it's finding people that want to be a part of that culture, and that's where I've actually been proud of what we've accomplished.
President Cunningham, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Just a comment. Well, first of all, with many thanks, I think we can see here we have Division I, Division II, Division III opportunities across our system that are really substantial. I remain struck by the grade point averages by all of your students across all of our campuses. I mean, they're student athletes first, and I can see how our athletics programs here that you present and that we've seen before hold that to be first and true. The student success rates, when we talk about student athletes, we're giving them skills that are far beyond what they're going to get in the field, and we know that plays out in their employment and in their retention and success rates. So those are the reasons that in addition to all the great athletic parts that I know we, and as a board and certainly as your president, think about student athletics in the way that I do. The finances are obviously different across. I will say just as a little tweak there, it is interesting to me as I've learned about the athletics that we have, for example, the only public D3 opportunity. I think that is really magical. And while They are not paid for by sports scholarships. We do, Morris does give out a tremendous amount of scholarships and financial aid, and we are very good at that across our system. So in that regard, we're providing an opportunity for those student athletes to have a D3 experience at a cost that is much, different than other D3 private opportunities that they may come across. And so I'm just really tremendous. So I'm really excited to have the full opportunity of suite of athletic opportunities on show here for the board to understand and appreciate all the time they put into the presentations.
All right, we have 3 more regents who would like to speak, and we, of course, have one more topic having to do with Duluth branding and then our committee report. So Regent Turner, Regent Tad Johnson, and then Regent Hips will bring it home.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. So I really, really love and admire what the Morris campus has done in partnership with the community, and how you've been able to I've been up there and they're just awesome. My question is for Crookston. My whole maternal family came up, in that area, and I've been to many high school football games that I would have loved to have been in an indoor stadium. That would be just cool if you had it up there for that whole region. I know all my relatives would be very appreciative. Anyway, I had heard the chancellor talking about something like that, just wondering if you had a quick update on if that's still something that you could emulate from the Morris campus, and if there's an appetite for it up there.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Mayron and Regent Turner, for the question. Currently, the Crookston High School just built a new facility, so they added a new football and track area on their campus.
Okay.
You're correct. Chancellor Holzclaws had tried to work with the community and the city to try to enhance the facilities by a shared facility, a regional sports complex. I think at this point in time, we're looking back towards our campus to see what we can do to provide an enhanced student-athlete experience on our campus. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't share some facilities and help each other out at times, as we always have for the past 30 years. But when we built that facility in 1995, we shared that facility with the high school. But for us in intercollegiate athletics, it's hard to play on a high school facility, hard to recruit those students not playing in your home facility. And I think you've seen that across the board, and some in the Northern Sun too, that they're actually building new facilities all across the board and enhancing their facilities for recruiting and retention purposes, and to provide that student-athlete experience. So we're currently working with capital planning to move forward with like 3 different phases to improve our campus facilities. So.
Okay, so the high school beat us to it. Punch.
They did,
okay.
yeah.
All right, Regent Tad Johnson.
Thanks. I just have a quick comment for Director Carr. I just want to commend you on the GPA. Your students are achieving in all of you. But I grew up in Duluth, so every Friday and Saturday night were UMD hockey games. So that's kind of what we did. And it's hard to explain to people outside of Duluth the culture. Deeply ingrained in the Duluth culture is following UMD sports, whether it's women's hockey or men's hockey or basketball or football, and you've won championships in all of those. And so anyway, what's really great is you're cranking out such good citizens. I believe the land acknowledgement thing was the idea of the athletes, and they were working with my friend Doug Thompson, who's a professor in the American Indian Studies Department. So I just want to thank you for your good work, and all of you are doing excellent work. So thanks, and please keep it up.
Thank you for the comment, Regent Johnson. I did want to acknowledge Doug and his work with the student athletes. It's it's just so nice to see a faculty member that has really embraced this role of mentoring and working with this Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and his work even throughout the summer, having the kids over to his house for meals. It's really inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Last Regent Hips.
Thank you. Thanks for the great presentation. And I really like the niche sports that we're doing at Crookston with equestrian and shooting. Fastest growing sport in high school league is clay sports, clay pigeons or whatever. fishing is coming up there, esports is coming up, as really strong sports. But my question has to do with NIL and transfer portal in Division II and Division III. Do we have collectives out there? I know that more Division II and III schools are getting into that. Could you just comment on that?
Chair Maron, Regent Hibsch, thanks for the question. As far as shooting sports, that's gone well for us. Our equestrian program, top notch. We are adding esports as a club this current year as well, so we're getting on top of that. As far as NIL goes, it's a little bit different for us, I think, compared to Duluth, but we've probably only have about 10 student athletes that have contracts, and they're not major contracts, but we do track that through our compliance in that area. As far as the transfer portal goes, we've been fairly fortunate in that area as well. Obviously, I think the coaches feel they're constantly recruiting their student athletes, so student athlete engagement is huge right now for our coaches, and making sure they're connecting with them basically on a daily basis outside of practice, checking in with them. And I think our entire staff is trying to do that, to have a good inclusive environment, and that we want to keep them. We recruited you here and we want you here. But it could be different on the various campuses, but we've been pretty fortunate so far.
Chair Maron and,
Yes.
and Regent Hibsch. The way we've approached it is that we wanted to follow the lead of the Twin Cities campus and make sure the structure we put in place was sort of coherent throughout the system. So we partnered with a company called Influencer that manages the marketplace for the student athletes where they can register. And then we do have a collective that's called the 218 Champions Collective. And our relationship with them and with Influencer is similar to the Twin Cities campus relationship with Dinkytown athletes and with Influencer.
Yes,
Madam Chair,
thank you.
Mr. Hibsch. We don't, thankfully. We do not have a collective. There are, D3 is coming into that a little bit, but it has not impacted Morris at this point in time. The transfer portal and the availability for students to move in and between institutions is real, though that is true. At the Division III level, as just with every level, is getting a student to your campus, student or student athlete, and then making sure that experience is such that they want to stay there and have that 4-year experience at your campus. And that has been a change in the last several years. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I think Regent Kenyanya was correct, at least since we've been on the board here. We've not had a presentation from athletics at our system campuses, and greatly appreciate the information you've provided us and an opportunity to dialogue with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now hear from Duluth Chancellor Charles Neese and Duluth Chief Marketing and Public Relations Officer Lynn Williams, who will give us an overview on UMD's recent branding refresh. All right. Chancellor Neese, if you would like to start us off.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Chairman and Regents. Thank you for the opportunity for us to share with you the results of some great work that happened last year. So I can't take any credit for it because I wasn't here. But I do want to acknowledge my colleague Lynn Williams, who really led the team, both on campus as well as the stakeholder involvement and stakeholder engagement, for us to go through a process of discovering a collective voice on what makes the University of Minnesota Duluth distinctive. And so while the work did come with a new logo,
Okay.
a logo that really embraces our family and our relationship with our sibling campuses in the University of Minnesota, I think it's also important to know that this has launched a brand messaging around our role within this amazing University of Minnesota system. I'm excited about this work because it comes from the campus and our community stakeholders' voices. But I'm also excited because it has launched the campus on a path of amplifying the distinctive educational contributions it makes in the university system, higher education opportunities across the region, if not factors that make us distinctive across the United States. So it really provides us a great framing as the University of Minnesota starts to undertake its strategic planning process, but also dovetails within the University of Minnesota Duluth campus as we will launch our strategic planning process this academic year as well. So with that, I want to turn it over to Lynn and the great work that she is doing, and then look forward to your thoughts and your comments as we advance the great work of the University of Minnesota Duluth and the University of Minnesota system.
Thank you, Chancellor Neese. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to present to you about this today. Again, I am Lynn Williams, and I serve as the Chief Marketing and Public Relations Officer for Duluth, and I also have the privilege of working with Chancellor Erickson on the Morris campus as well. So we'll focus on Duluth today. This was a really fun project. So as we embarked upon this, what we did is we thought, what were our overall goals for this effort? Which really was, as Chancellor Neese commented, what are our distinctions and what makes us an outstanding institution? As well as how do we uplift those unique attributes about UMD in that marketplace and really stand out? Highlighting, of course, our location, which we know time and time again, many times over the years, when we did branding work 7-8 years ago, that rose to the top, and it always continues to do so. And we'll talk about how that's integrated. And we very consciously went into this project knowing that we wanted to talk about our place within the University of Minnesota and what are the benefits and the attributes about being part of the University of Minnesota, and let that drive whatever ended up happening with the logo and the institutional mark. I will note that along the way, there were many opportunities for us to work and to work with university relations. We worked under the Driven to Discover brand and kept the president's office and university relations involved in key milestones to make sure that we were still working within all of our brand standards. So the process was pretty straightforward. Did a full bid process, selected an agency called BVK out of Milwaukee, and they were wonderful partners to work with some really good depth in higher education and specifically in enrollment marketing. Very much had that lens going into this. So that really started a whole bunch of discovery, your typical process where we do a lot of conversation with the campus community, with our stakeholders, with system leadership, campus leadership, but really also primarily with our prospective students and their families, and really thinking about what they know and what they thought about Duluth and UMD. And how did that then inform the messaging and the brand platform moving forward? So after that work was done as giving us the foundation, we did a lot of creative concept testing. We started with 5 different concepts, went down to 3, then down to 2. And in the creative concept testing, we tried to also test the logo at the same time, but we didn't get really conclusive results. So we did another round of testing to really dig into the logo and the different ways in which we could use the M or not use the M and kind of test that in the marketplace to see the pros and cons. And then we got to work and we built a media plan. This will be probably UMD's largest ever marketing effort. So we will be rolling out media that's already in production right now, and some of the channels are live. So some of the traditional things like social media and digital advertising, but we're also going to do some things like Twitch, a gaming platform where a lot of high schoolers are, and weather.com and Spotify and connected TV, Hulu. So you'll see some UMD marketing and additional marketing in the marketplace, and we're very excited to be loud and proud about this brand refresh. And then we just did some work behind the scenes, like a playbook, so that all of the communicators across the Duluth campus have access to tools and resources and can integrate that into the different colleges and the research institutes, so we have some nice consistency across the campus. This is a lot of information, and I won't go over all of it, but essentially all of that legwork drove what is the foundation of the brand? What is that positioning, and how do we position that competitively? And so we call these our brand pillars. And I'll just run through these quickly. The first one being this courageous spirit, this intrepid spirit that the Duluth community and the UMD campus has, this long-held independence, but also this wonder, innovation, discovery, exploration. And you'll see a couple examples of how that comes to play. So everything from, leveraging our natural resources and the research that happens at UMD that students have a chance to be a big part of, and our sustainability focus. And that leads into this natural integration. And it's not just about the place, which is very important to us, but it's also about the idea that we have a lot of interdisciplinary work on campus. We're the right sized campus, and just the makeup of our campus, as you know, is integrated. You might have a science class in 2 completely different opposite sides of the campus. And what that means is our faculty work across disciplines. Our students work across disciplines. We have academic programs that cross disciplines in colleges. And so that idea that this integration has multiple different layers to it. And of course, this integration with the community, with the environment, and with the beautiful place that we live and learn. And how that provides students this opportunity to enhance their learning experience and give them experiential and hands-on opportunities that really make a difference in our region and in their experience. And all of this comes back around to a student-centered culture. This idea that Duluth is the right sized. We're big enough, we're small enough. Our faculty can challenge our students while also supporting them. And when we look at this as a whole, that idea of really being conscious of a holistic well-being and taking care of ourselves and encouraging students to step outside, get some fresh air, fuel that creativity, and be conscious of their own self-care and how that integrates into the environment and the place with which we learn and live. So you'll see some examples that aren't all inclusive, but kind of build the pillars to what those three things come together as. The overall theme of the campaign is called A Different Kind of Classroom. And if I can get a video, they will do it for me. Okay. This is just a 60-second spot.
At the University of Minnesota Duluth, you'll find a different kind of classroom, where the natural world and academic environment aren't separate spaces, but one organically balanced habitat. Some classes will take you where you never thought you would go. You can easily step out into the wider world you're studying and return refreshed to the academic task at hand, with new perspectives in mind. You'll be equipped and encouraged to boldly follow your passion. Within a supportive community, you'll thrive academically, socially, and personally. Here, our classrooms extend outside a traditional campus, where daily encounters with the environment and community remind us that education is an act of exploration, whose reward is found beyond the classroom.
We have no shortage of amazing, awe-inspiring images in Duluth. And I want to give a quick shout out to my incredibly talented team. We produce all of our creative in-house. It's very authentic and it's done with a pretty minimal staff, and they do a wonderful job. I'm very fortunate to work with them. So just to recap, theme is a different kind of classroom. The overall positioning statement is where courageous exploration yields lasting rewards. And then you see those three pillars that serve as the foundation for us to build off of. And these are just run quickly to give you an idea of how does that come to life? What does this marketing look like, and what are the different messages that we use? Where life-changing inspiration comes naturally. Small classes, expansive classrooms. Go boldly beyond the classroom. And that is students out on the Blue Heron on Lake Superior. Explore more, challenge accepted. When you explore more, you connect to more. So you start to see that exploration and connection coming through in our different headlines. And taking advantage of the outdoors, our campus is greener than most, and how that's integrated into our learning environment. And yes, we finally did it. I think when I started 10 years ago, I told Ann Aronson, we'll get there someday, but let us do it the right way and let us do it on our time. And I want to, first of all, thank all of you for your support in understanding that this is a move for Duluth. We were the last campus to do this. And it is not without feedback. And no, it's not going to be found on a Bulldogs hockey jersey anytime soon. But what we learned was that it really resonated with prospective students and their families. And the connection to the U of M is really powerful for us. We're very, very proud to be a part of the University of Minnesota. And it is wonderful for our campus and for our students. And it was time for us to just lean into that and own it. It really strengthens our connection. You know, Mankato did a rebrand and they introduced their own M. And a lot of people think they're part of the University of Minnesota. So we really wanted to stake our claim and let everybody know that we really truly are the University of Minnesota. And I will mention too, the M is not foreign to campus. It's been around for a while. It's been on our homepage for a decade. So it's something that we got to gradually. And again, I just appreciate your support in letting us do this over time. And yes, the athletic marks will stay the same. So champ doesn't change. You'll still see that loud and proud in the athletic world. That UMD logo that's on the slide there, that's also part of our athletic spirit marks, and those will stay the same. We're not going away from calling ourselves UMD. So I think we found a good balance to how this will all work out. And overall, I have to say, it has gone way better than I expected the rollout to go. And my threshold can be kind of high for that, but generally speaking, other than that first 24 hours and some social media chatter, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback and a lot of alums who are really proud that we're finally waving the U of M flag. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Well, first of all, before we take any questions or comments, let me just say I'm so appreciative of your enthusiasm with this, and it is, you can just see it infused in what you just showed us and what you've rolled out. So congratulations, Lynn. Thank you. Terrific. And you did a great job too, Chancellor.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all Lynn.
Input too. I just have a quick question. So, you know, when I looked at the picture with the logos, going back one slide with the M, and when I first saw it on my screen when I got my materials, there's the little R there, and I'm going, M period? Why is there M period? So I'm sure our legal is going to tell me we have to have the little R there, but it looks kind of goofy. It's like M with a period? Do we have to have it? And then I started to think, do we have this on our other campuses? We all have little dots there, but anyway, it was noticeable to me. At least UMD, the TM is really tiny. But anyway, I don't know, if we could remove the dot, that'd be great. But now you have my nitpick. So beyond that, why don't we move to other regents who will probably have more constructive comments. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and thank you, Chancellor Neese and Ms. Williams. I know this has been a long time labor of love for a lot of people. And I know you may not remember this, but when I came and spoke at commencement, we had a very positive dialogue about a phrase I wanted to use in my remarks, and hopefully you'll invite me back so I can use that phrase now. But I really appreciate this. I have heard from parents of prospective students that their students are more excited about going to UMD and considering the University of Minnesota Duluth because now they can get a sweatshirt with the M on it. They can feel like they're part of that community. My diploma still says University of Minnesota, even though I graduated from Duluth. And so there's real value in that, and is something that people are really grounding in. And then I had the pleasure of attending the Swenson College of Science and Engineering Academy event this last Friday night with Chancellor Neese and others. And the number of people who independently, I didn't ask, didn't say anything, wasn't wearing my pin, independently said they were excited about this. Faculty, graduates, community business leaders. So thank you for taking a very bold step. I still remember when the maroon and gold M went up outside Glensheen, and that was a big whoa kind of moment. So this is really wonderful to see, and thank you for your perseverance in this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, Lynn, for your hard work. So I've been getting calls from both sides, as I'm sure you have. Usually older alums don't like the big M because they're like, that's Mariucci Arena. That's our, you know. And I once walked into a coffee shop wearing a Gopher T-shirt, and there were a couple of hockey players in there who are friends of mine, and they were giving me a really hard time. They're like, we don't like that rodent here, Tad. So anyway, there's a hockey rivalry that goes back a long, long time, and we're going to play again next week. So anyway, but what I get from the students is the reason they go to UMD is it's part of a great university. So the younger generation has a different view of it, and I think they're happy to be part of this system. So, and I think as we old fogies die out, there's going to be less of that, and this is all the freshmen know, and this is a new beginning of a new tradition. So I wish you well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Cunningham, you had a comment you wanted to make.
Thank you so much, Chair Mayron. And Lynn, thank you so much. And my comments here are directed at Lynn because, and your whole team, but because your chancellor and I both get to benefit from this coming in, especially, a logo is a logo until it's not just a logo. And as the board has asked and we have committed across our team to work on systemness this year, it's a lot easier to talk about systemness in ways that we can collaborate together and really elevate the system when we all have this same brand and we're really proud and excited about it. And that will benefit our students and benefit our system and benefit the ways that we coordinate across. And so it's a logo until it's not just a logo, and all that work will make the next work that we're going to do even easier and more powerful. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Regent Turner, did you have a comment? No? Okay. Regent Ruth Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. This might go down as the board meeting that became the Duluth board meeting. This has been great. We had wonderful news and discussion yesterday in our a special committee on academic health, all the exciting things going on, in the Duluth, the medical school, adding making this 4-year program, the Duluth Medical District, things are coming to,
One of these.
Okay, sorry. They're coming together, and I think that's really fantastic. So I also want to mention, I love that short video, and I really think when we're trying to capture, and I said this to people at the academic health thing too, these short videos are really great. I like all the other slides, but that captures attention and really gets people to focus. So if there are, cost-effective ways that we can do more of those with the medical and other things too, I think that would be really fantastic. And just a comment, I had that with Chancellor yesterday, but when I was young, the population of Duluth was about 150,000 people. And then it was after the end of mining and, other changes in there, that changed, it went down. I'm really hopeful this is part of a growing and exciting new era for Duluth on so many levels. So we're happy to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Director Williams, Chancellor Neese. Apologize for missing much of that presentation, but I think I know what you said.
I'm going to use my chair's prerogative and say that they're not going to repeat it.
Okay. Thank you. You read my mind. But no, I just want to comment that you probably got feedback both ways. Matter of fact, I'm sure you did. But it means people care. It's so much better than the alternative. People care. They have an affinity. It means something to them. And, Regent Johnson was kind of talking about that, how it applies differently to different people, and eventually that will change. And I don't know how many know this, I played for UMD Rugby for a year or two there. UMD Rugby was historically known as the Penguins. And there was this time around my time there that the rugby club wanted to be embraced by the campus, wanted to maybe get, some club sport funding, but they weren't the Bulldogs, right? So it was that same conversation where you kind of lose the alumni support. They're like, why would you guys move away from the Penguins? But you want the campus to embrace you. And they did that, and the campus has. And I think it's, it's kind of the same here where we talk about systemness. It applies to all of us in both sides and kind of coming into the fold. So appreciate the leadership. I know former Regent Chancellor McMillan, was a big kind of supporter of this. And again, we talk so much about the strength of the M and our brand, and our president, who knew that brand from outside. You've told us so much about it. I think you often say, you guys don't quite know what you have here, I think is the way you've put it. So to make sure we're using that to its full extent, spreading it across, especially when we're representing ourselves just outside the state. Director Williams, we talked once about the Blue Heron going to Chicago, and using the Bulldog champ, which I love. And, so anyway, great work. I think we're all supportive, and also a little off topic, but still on topic, want to highlight that Director Williams is supporting Morris as well. That's just a good example of the ways that we can kind of make sure we're supporting each other as a system and sharing talent and finding ways to keep talent here at the university. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, Regent Hipsch.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. I love this, absolutely love it. I mean, we have 5 distinct campuses. Let's use that as to our advantage. I mean, the outdoors in Duluth is fantastic. Let's utilize that. Well, why not? It's different than the Twin Cities, and it's spot on from a business standpoint. I just think it's right there. I mean, kids are going to love this. They're going to start looking at this. Yeah, that's right for me. Duluth is right for me. It's different than the other campuses. So, good job on this. I can't like it better, I don't think. So, thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation, and go forth. Thank you. All right. At this time, we're at the point of the agenda where we will hear our committee reports. And so at this time, I would ask with the report of the Audit and Compliance Committee, Regent Gully, you are going to share the report with us.
Thank you, Chair. The Audit and Compliance Committee did not consider any action items this month. The committee's first item was a discussion of potential policy changes to the approval requirements for engagements with external auditors. Changes recommended by Controller Viola and Chief Auditor Galswick would eliminate the dollar threshold for approved engagements with the university's principal external auditor and only require approval of engagements that may impair the audit firm's independence. Approval requirements for other external auditors would be removed. The committee also felt that this threshold should make clear that the administration should review all engagements before they are agreed on in order to ensure that there's an opportunity to flag any items for consideration by the board. The current thresholds are part of the Audit and Compliance Committee's charter contained within the Board of Regents policy, board operations, and agenda guidelines. Given that the board's committee structure is currently under review by the Governance and Policy Committee, and based on this discussion, the Audit and Compliance Committee voted to endorse the proposed changes and would ask the Office of the Board of Regents to incorporate those changes into the proposed amendments that will return for action to the Governance and Policy Committee in December. Next, the committee heard an update on 2 remediation efforts in response to issues identified by the Office of Internal Audit, which have been outstanding for more than 2 years. Those issues are the Tweed Museum inventory and appraisal projects on the Duluth campus and the University Safety Training and Centralization Project. I'm pleased to report that the Tweed Museum project was closed this period, and the safety training issue is on track to be resolved by the end of 2025. The calendar year. For our final item, Chief Auditor Galswick provided the committee with a brief internal audit update, reporting that 38% of the outstanding recommendations rated as essential were resolved by the university departments. This is slightly lower than the expected implementation rate of 40%, but an increase from June's 34%. Thank you, Chair Myron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. For the report of Governance and Policy Committee, Regent Verheulen, if you would share your report with us.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Governance and Policy Committee did not consider any action items this month. The first item we considered provided an opportunity for committee members to offer feedback on the selection criteria used by the Regent Candidate Advisory Council during the election process. The committee heard from RCAC Chair Greg Clausen and Vice Chair Barb Farrell regarding what the council is seeking in candidates. And I really do think I speak for myself when I express how grateful we are that they joined us today. I would encourage my colleagues not on the committee to watch this meeting and provide either myself, Chair Mayron, or the board office with your thoughts and input. Chair Mayron and Executive Director Steves will share that feedback from Regents at the RCAC meeting on October 29th. Next, the committee reviewed adjustments to the board's committee structure in Board of Regents policy, board operations, and agenda guidelines. These changes include the elevation of the Special Committee on Academic Health to a standing committee of 6 regents, codify the Finance and Operations Committee and the Mission Fulfillment Committee as committees of 12 regents, clarifying the role of standing versus special committees, and other housekeeping changes to align with the current practice. As Regent Gully noted, the Audit and Compliance Committee endorsed changes to the approval requirements for engagements with auditors. Those recommendations will all be incorporated into the final set of amendments. The committee was supportive of the proposed revisions, and we look forward to acting on the policy changes at our December meeting. Finally, the committee heard an overview of the bylaws of the Board of Regents as part of our comprehensive review process. Potential areas the committee discussed included codifying the potential for multiple vice chairs, formally tying the officer positions of secretary and treasurer to the university appointments for those individuals that they hold, as we do for as long as they hold those positions, as we do for the president, adjusting the process for requesting to appear for the board, and other clarifying language changes. As the second highest policy authority within the university, the bylaws are amended very infrequently. This would actually only be the 21st time since they were adopted in 1889. If there are areas or items that you think should be addressed, please let myself or Vice Chair Mayron know. We look forward to further discussions on this topic and plan to review drafts of these amendments in December. Thank you, Chair Mayron. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Verhalen. For the report of the Litigation Review Committee, Regent Tad Johnson, if you would share your report with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Litigation Review Committee met on October 10th, 2024. At this meeting, the committee adopted a resolution that authorized the closing of the meeting to discuss matters subject to the attorney-client privilege. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you for that robust report. Next, we will receive the reports of the Mission Fulfillment and Finance and Operation Committees. Their reports will note that those items the committees approved on behalf of the board. We will start first with Finance and Operations Committee. Regent Hipsch, your report, please.
Thank you. The Finance and Operations Committee approved 4 items on behalf of the board this month. Those items are the resolution related to the state biennial budget request for fiscal year 2026 to 2027, the resolution related to the 2024 6-year capital plan and 2025 state capital request, the revised consent report, which includes 2 purchases of goods and services over $5 million, and the permanent university fund report, and finally, the employment agreement for the Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Hipsch. At this time, for the Mission Fulfillment Committee, Regent Ruth Johnson, your report, please.
The Mission Fulfillment Committee unanimously approved 2 items on behalf of the board this month. Those items are amendments to the Board of Regents policy, international education, research, and outreach, and the consent report, which includes academic program changes and conferral of tenure. There are no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now turning to the Special Committee on Academic Health, Regent Ruth Johnson, would you share that report?
Special Committee on Academic Health did not consider any action items this month. The first item was formal review of the proposed Health Sciences Strategic Plan. The Special Committee heard about statewide stakeholder outreach, as well as the government advocacy plan for the 2025 Minnesota legislative session. The discussion provided a final opportunity for Special Committee members to offer feedback on the draft plan. We welcome any input from those not on the Special Committee before the final plans returns for action in December. Our second item was the first of a 4-part series that we have planned for this year, in which the Special Committee will learn about how the university is meeting needs across the state through academic and clinical training partnerships. Today's presentation focused on healthcare education initiatives and opportunities on the Duluth campus and in the surrounding area dedicated to advancing family medicine and serving the needs of rural Minnesota and Native American communities. Presentation also highlighted those programs working to do that at the medical school, College of Pharmacy, and other programs across the academic health-related disciplines. I'm pleased to report there's excellent work being done across the various programs with our clinical partners as we make the transition to a full 4-year program for the medical school on the Duluth campus. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. That concludes our committee reports and brings us to old business. And by the way, one of the changes we are contemplating, I believe it's to our bylaws, is to change the name of old business to unofficial or to unfinished business, unfinished business. But we haven't made that change yet. So referring to old business, is there any old business to come before the board? All right, hearing none, is there any new business to come before the board? There being no additional business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.